So, something slightly different for this one. You've just got me. So there's no Ash in this episode. It's also not going to be a podcast. So if you are here for Ash, you're going to have to wait for one of those episodes. But in terms of this one, something slightly different. Probably going to be something that's going to be a little bit more regular. Me just doing videos on my own. In terms of this one and the topic for this one, you've probably spotted I'm not wearing OTR5 clothing. Not got an OTR5 t-shirt on. What I have got on is Oxygen Advantage. Why? This whole episode is going to be about breath work. We have had a little bit of a gap, purely because, as we mentioned in the last episode, Ash has got a new job. She's settling into that job. We're allowing a little bit of time to settle and really focus on that one. In that time, I've become a breathwork instructor. Again, I haven't left my job. I've still got a full-time job, but this is something I wanted to do to become a breathwork instructor, or at least a qualified instructor, so I could benefit the community. And at the end of this episode, I'm going to talk about how that is going to work. In terms of the rest of this episode, we're going to have a look at what is breathwork, a little bit of the science behind breathwork, trying to keep it as simple as possible. Then we're going to have a look at just how much breathwork changed my life. I've spoken about meditation in the past. We'll talk about breathwork, just how closely they're linked, and just how one may have changed my life more than the other, now that I've done the training. So in terms of breathwork, what is it? There's going to be a lot of different methods out there. Oxygen Advantage being one. You may have heard of the Wim Hof method. You may have heard of other alternative methods that have got a little bit more history behind them, such as like pranayama, which is very much big within yoga. Then we've got others like Tummo. These have got thousands of years of history. If you want to know more about them, Breath by James Nestor, really good overview of those and a really nice place to start when you're looking at breath work. In terms of what it is, really it's that conscious control of your breath to have some sort of health benefit. Whether that health benefit is emotional, mental, or physical, there's going to be some sort of benefit that you're going to get from it. And a lot of the ones I've had in the past are mental, but there's also a physical element in there. As you've seen, I am part of the fitness industry. I do deliver fitness qualifications. So there is a physical element in there as well. But in terms of breath work, why did I choose Oxygen Advantage? It's the most accessible for people to do. So when I'm looking at giving back to the community, where a lot of people, or the majority of them, haven't done breath work before, it's going to be the most accessible for them. It's going to be the easiest one to pick up. Why is it simple? Why is it simpler than the others? And in terms of Oxygen Advantage and how it differentiates from the others is the fact that it's just implemented into daily life. You can do Oxygen Advantage now. So you could do it now. You could do it while walking the dog. Now you could do it while cooking food. You could do it while working. Any time that you have that time to consciously think about your breath, you can be practicing Oxygen Advantage breath work. Sounds very similar to other techniques, such as meditation, such as mindfulness. They are very closely linked together. So Oxygen Advantage, more applicable to the masses, easier to pick up, easier to teach. And I would say it's the fundamentals. Really, it's teaching you how to breathe properly and just how that has a massive impact in your life. Whereas some of the others, a little bit more advanced, will take a little bit of time picking up. And you've got to kind of prep your body for what they would do, especially things like Wim Hof that are on the more advanced end, we'll call them. So in terms of the science behind Oxygen Advantage and the science behind breath work, one of the fundamentals surrounding a lot of the breathwork practices is that you should be breathing through your nose. So it has 30 different functions, does your nose. And a lot of them involve taking in air. It can also impact how your brain works. It can impact how your endocrine system works. It can impact how you taste, definitely how you smell. Going on to the mouth, where we're looking at that taste, we're looking at eating and digesting food. One of the big things that the mouth isn't made for is breathing. You're looking back in terms of the history of breathing, and ancestors thousands of years ago will have only breathed through their nose, other than in times of stress. So that's where this is coming in. If you are breathing through your mouth, I certainly have done in the past. There's times where I'll breathe through my mouth, more so when it's about catching it, making that conscious effort to breathe through my nose. So in terms of that, looking at stress and mouth breathing, our breathing itself, so taking in air, has a big impact on our heart rate, our endocrine system, and the release of things like adrenaline that we may have heard of in the past, activated very much by the nervous system and that parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. So when it comes to breathing, we breathe through our nose. We will see slight variations in heart rate. One of the big things with this breathwork and Oxygen Advantage Breathwork is to slow down how often we're breathing into like 4 to 6 breaths a minute. Might sound very drastic. The average human breathes around 14 a minute. We're looking at slowing it down to 4 and 6. Why? It's going to allow our body time to adapt to each breath. It's going to allow things to work a little bit more efficiently, and it's going to put less stress on our body. If you look at us compared to animals, animals breathe a lot less, or most animals breathe a lot less. And those ones that breathe more die first. Now, there's some studies and some science out there which is saying the less you breathe, the more chance you have of living longer. And if you are to breathe fast, you have more chance of dying earlier. So we can really slow it down and use our nose to breathe. There's also things like nitric oxide, which can only be produced through nose breathing, which is quite important for the body in terms of letting it work effectively and efficiently. But rather than going into all the science, which I'll touch upon in future episodes, just know breathing properly, breathing correctly can help with things like anxiety, depression, brain function, brain clarity, athletic performance. The list is endless when it comes to just breathing and the impact that can have on your life, which moves on to the impact it had on my life. I talked about, not sure what episode it was on the podcast, but I talked about meditation being the single most effective thing to help my mental health and help minimize the struggle I was having when it came to anxiety and then some symptoms of depression. When I've done this qualification, become a breathwork instructor, one thing I have noticed was just how much was caused by my breathing. I was aware of it at the time, and I'd catch myself every now and again. I breathe in really shallow, also really quickly. Sometimes I'd even stopped breathing in times of stress. That's just my body naturally going through a cycle. With that, I'm releasing more adrenaline, releasing more cortisol, and I'm feeling stressed. Going through all of this, meditation, as I said, meditation starts. You sit on the floor, you focus on your breath, and you get used to focusing on your breath. That transitions into daily life. When you catch yourself feeling stressed, then you come back to meditation or that mindful breathing. You slow your breathing down. You might take a little bit of a different breath, whether that is a big breath or a smaller breath. You'll reset and your body gets told to calm down. So that's where that comes in. Could that be? And the fact that I was just noticing my breath, changing my breath, slowing it down, why I would consider meditation to be the single most important thing that I've ever implemented. But started as meditation, then became part of my daily life. That's when we're bordering on that breath work. Now you can start to see how both are quite important. Now we move on to how I'm going to use this breathwork qualification and becoming a breathwork instructor moving forward. And it'll benefit you directly if you choose to use it. In the description, there'll be a link tree. On our Instagram, there'll also be that link tree. But on there, you'll be able to join a waiting list. I'm not asking you to pay for anything, just to show that you're interested. Obviously, I've got a full-time job. Once something gets enough interest, it's something that I'll start to implement. It's also going to be one of those, it's a first come, first served basis. So if you get in there early, register your interest, you'll be likely one of the people who we take forward for breathwork coaching. What is breathwork coaching? So in terms of how it'll start, there'll be consultations. We'll be doing breathwork practice in terms of looking at the fundamentals and the dynamics of your breathing. Whether you're breathing correctly, if you are breathing correctly, what we can do to take that to the next step. But as I mentioned earlier on, a lot of people don't breathe correctly. If you look through James Nestor's book, Breath, it's nearly half the population who breathe through their mouth. So you might find yourself one of those. Sometimes you might have physiological characteristics, such as like a septum, so the middle of your nose that diverts either side, or closed nostrils, narrow nostrils, that could be impacting how you breathe. So that's where that'll come in. That coaching will be one-to-one. So the coaching will be one-to-one, done online or in person if you're local to where I am. And we can kind of do that together and hopefully improve your health, whether that is for physical performance, mental clarity while you're at work, just a general mindfulness practice, or to help things like anxiety, depression, on the side of why OTI5 exists. So in terms of that, be one-to-one coaching. Along with that, I'm also looking at providing some group sessions. So those will take place online or again, in person. Those, along with that, could also be some meditations. We have said they're slightly close together when it comes to definition and purpose. So we'll be mixing between the two. And I'm also going to produce some videos that we can get on YouTube so you can come to it whenever you need. So that's how we're going to use it forward. Hopefully you found this video useful in terms of breathwork, kind of giving you an insight into it, something that you're interested in and something that you're interested in implementing into your life. If you have found it useful, like, subscribe, please leave a comment as well if you can. Have you tried breathwork before? Is it something you're going to try in future? If you've tried breathwork, what did you try? How did you find it? Maybe there's breathwork that you've tried that I haven't. I'm really interested in holotropic breathwork, so if you know anything about that, pop it in the comments and I will read every single one. So it turns out that's it for this video. So I shall see you in the next one, which will more than likely be the return of the podcast.